Welcome to the latest episode of InvoTalks, powered by InvoZone, a software development and consulting firm providing remote teams of software engineers and programmers in the latest tech stacks. We offer blockchain development services under the brand name InvoBlocks and game and metaverse development under InvoGames. For any queries, please shoot us an email at info@invozone.com. I'm your host, Nail Shabazz, Head of Marketing. And in this episode, we'll be diving into the use of generative AI in cybersecurity. Today, we have a very special guest joining us, Tylor Young. He is the Chief Information Security Officer at BigID, and BigID needs no introduction, a leader in data security, privacy, compliance, and governance. Tylor has over 9 years of professional experience. And before we get started, you can also listen to us on Apple, Google, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Please consider subscribing if you like our content. So, Tylor, welcome to the show. Why don't you take the initial few minutes and introduce yourself and tell us about the experience, what BigID does.
Yeah, sure. So again, thanks for having me on the podcast. So I'm Tylor Young, CISO at BigID. I've been at BigID for about a year. Prior to BigID, I was at Relativity, where I worked for about 5 years building out their cybersecurity program. Before BigID, I was at Zurich Insurance, leading out their digital forensics practice and building that out. Prior to that, I worked at a consulting firm for a few years doing incident response and digital forensic consulting. And then before that, I worked for the U.S. government as an intern doing digital forensic investigations on some of their different forensic criminal cases that they were working on. So kind of have exponentially grown my career over the last 12 or so years, both in the public sector and private sector, both in incident response, AppSec, CloudSec, and it's kind of moved around. And it's been a wild ride. It's fun. And so what is BigID, right? So where I'm at today, BigID is a leading data security company, as you guys mentioned. We're in the data discovery and data security posture management space. So what essentially our product does is allows companies to identify, classify, and find data throughout their entire environments, regardless of where it's stored, classify the data, tell you where your sensitive data is at, give you insights into who's accessing the data, and then allow you to take remediation actions on removing access, removing users that are accessing documents or files that they shouldn't have access to, encrypting files, deleting files. So we really give you a full end-to-end data security platform that allows you to take action and understand what's happening in your environment.
Okay, for my own curiosity, could you explain digital forensics a bit?
Yeah, sure. So digital forensics it's the practice of taking computer evidence or digital evidence and finding the fingerprints, if you will, or the footsteps of what an attacker or a bad actor has done, and put together the story to find evidence, essentially. So think of it like as a criminal investigation where people may, like a crime scene investigator, maybe doing like blood splatter analysis. When you look at it from the digital forensic perspective, somebody may have used a computer to commit financial fraud, and you're looking through their emails trying to find the needle in the haystack of they forwarded money to this person, or they were talking about a crime they were going to commit, or they went to a specific Tor website, or different things like that, where you can kind of start piecing together the crime of what may have happened.
Cool. All right, tell me how an organization can devise its cybersecurity plan and why companies fail to protect themselves against security threats.
Yeah, so two things. I think separating security threats from a security plan. So a security plan, in theory, is how you protect your organization at a very high level procedural processes, things that are happening in the environment that need to happen if you have an incident or a breach. And it should be like a guiding principle or a playbook of how things are happening, showing your tech stack and the way things are devised internally to block certain types of attacks, or the right people in the room to respond to an incident. And if it's this type of attack or this type of incident, who to pull in. And so it's kind of like a cohesive playbook that gets you kind of down the right track faster, and pulling in the right people at the right places and time and the right processes. And then the second question, when you think about why are organizations getting attacked and why are they maybe not putting the right effort into it, I don't ever, I think there's two problems. It's the first, there's a lot of ignorance when it comes to cyber attacks. There's always the mantra. It's shifting a little bit because it's being more mainstream, cyber attacks, but it went from it couldn't happen to us, so why am I going to invest in it if it doesn't happen to me? And then there's the other part of it, which is, we don't even know what to do. Where do we even start? And so I think a lot of organizations early on in their cyber journey deal with these two problems. But then you do have organizations that put the money forward and they never have to deal with a cyber attack or a threat actor trying to compromise their environment. And it really just goes with some of the industries that organizations are in, what their attack surface looks like, what type of systems they're deploying, and the maturity of their cybersecurity program as they grow it out. So it's a very difficult thing to say, is an organization that doesn't put effort into cybersecurity going to have a more severe breach than somebody who put trillions of dollars into their cybersecurity program? It all depends. Like, for example, if you look at like Microsoft or AWS, they have billion-dollar security budgets, but they still have breaches and security incidents.
What do you think is the main reason? Is it like a combination of having not strong enough protocol, or internal people not taking cybersecurity seriously? Because cybersecurity team cannot protect everything, right?
Sure. So security culture, which is the latter of what you mentioned, people internally not taking security seriously is a serious problem. And security culture is how you lead in an organization as a CISO or as a security leader. You can't do it alone. You can't do it with just the people on your security team. You have to force multiply and secure your fortress, if you will. And in order to do that, you need everybody's buy-in, you need everybody's awareness. And so fundamentally, yeah, I mean, building that security culture is paramount to almost anything you can implement in your organization. People that can identify phishing, people that don't allow tailgate people to follow them through their buildings, people that just like the low-hanging fruit that everybody can kind of help really does help out the security team and helps out your security posture in the long run. So that's like first and foremost. But then there's a caveat here. It's like, if a nation state attacker is going to attack your entity, there's very few things you can do. And we always say that the rule of thumb is, if a nation state's going to attack you, the goal is to have enough defense and depth in place to make sure it costs them a ton of money and takes a ton of time. And the goal there is to capture the attacks that they're doing and be able to then recycle those back into the intelligence community and protect other people, so that then those attackers have to spend more time and more effort and more money and resources to then build new attack types. And so you kind of want to play this game of whack-a-mole to keep exposing it. But at the end of the day, the resources are infinite when you look at some of these government entities, and it's very difficult to stop them. And in some cases, it's nearly impossible.
So have you had the experience of like when you approach people in a corporate or a company where you have to give them like guideline, you have to change your password every 6 months, or your password has to be a certain way, and this is what a phishing attack looks like? How do you actually approach it, and how do you make it interesting enough just they actually feel the need to be involved?
So it starts at the top. I fundamentally believe that it needs to start with your executive team talking about it in all hands, and talking about it in just general forums, and showing the importance. I think it then carries out, and it needs to be something that you reward. And you don't want to make phishing this like taboo thing where people don't talk about it. The best thing you can do is like, for example, at BigID, we do phishing simulations, and we do one almost every other month. And the goal is to kind of build that muscle, and you make it gamified, right? Like, you give points to certain teams, and you give scores, and you let teams know who's doing better, and they kind of make it like an internal competition. And during Security Awareness Month, you do like giveaway awards for the fastest phish reporter and like things like that. And so you try to make it fun. And then you also try to raise awareness that, as an organization, we have a good security culture, and this is what we care about. And so if you want to be part of building this amazing company like we have at BigID, then you need to also buy into the security culture here too, because we're not only a security company, but we're also need to protect our customers and protect the data we have and protect our business. So kind of giving everybody a piece of the pie, if you will, that they have a play in security.
All right, let's talk about artificial intelligence and how it comes into cybersecurity. Give your opinion. Also separate the hype from the reality of it. So what do you think about it?
Okay, so It's both terrifying and extremely fascinating at the same time. It's terrifying because we saw the first piece of polymorphic malware that could evade all EDR solutions be developed, and developed by somebody who may have been a threat researcher, but didn't have the capability to write something so sophisticated. But they
So like, what's a polymorphic malware? Could you explain that, please?
Yeah, so this was essentially a piece of malware that could go persistent throughout a network or throughout systems and change as it was going from system to system to evade and to blend in as normal. And so what happened was they tested this against all the commercial top of the line EDR tools, which is the endpoint detection or next generation EV, if you want to call it for like simplistic cases. And none of them detected the malware. Now, we've seen this in the past, but we've seen it from very sophisticated and advanced nation-state attackers. What you've done now is essentially, in my opinion, open Pandora's box to the script kiddies and the cyber criminals and the average person sitting at home that just wants to attack somebody because they're upset about something or their bank did something they didn't like, and now they're going to be able to launch an attack that's so sophisticated that in the past we never dealt with this at a large scale because it was very targeted attacks from very advanced actors. Well, now you've opened this up to the Pandora's box, if you will, to all people that want to commit cybercrime to use this to build these exact same pieces of malware, these exact same advanced exploits, which in the past, like I said, were only done by a very, very few percentage of people. They were very targeted with what they did. The other side is fascinating because I can now allow my security team to work on the things that they need to be working on and force multiply them by automating alert detections and automating code scanning and automating a lot of these things that they were doing that were very manual code reviews. And I can help, and they can now force multiply themselves. So we don't need to hire a team of 70 people. We can do the same thing with a team of 10 or 11.
Okay.
And so I listened to an amazing quote the other day, and I'm terrible with quotes. And if you listen to any podcast I've ever done, I always say this, I'm terrible with quotes. But they basically said that there's going to be two types of people that are going to be essentially when GPT becomes, for something that's in everybody's hands on their phones, that's a part of life. You're going to have the people that adapt to it and the people that refuse to adapt. And those are going to be the ones that are affected by AI. Jobs are probably going to be impacted by AI. But what's going to happen is you have a new category of that exact same career that's going to evolve out of it. And this is just the way humanity's worked for the last, 10,000 years or whatever. Like, we adapt with new technology. And those that adapt are successful, and those that don't adapt are the ones that kind of get left off. And I think that's kind of the way this will happen as well.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. The way I'm understanding it, is it a race between people who could be using AI to launch an attack and the people who would be using AI to defend or the cybersecurity aspect of it? Is it how it is, or?
You could think of it like that. I don't necessarily know that that's where we're at yet. I think what you're seeing is people rushing to try to understand a technology that's somewhat foreign to them, that they've never experienced before. And so on one hand, yes, you have the bad guys are always going to, it's like the adage of like, the attacker has to be right once. The defenders have to be right 100% of the time. And so in theory, there's going to be some of that like cat and mouse game, if you will. But I don't know if it's a rush to see who can implement it quicker, because I think when you look at it, the attackers have to use it to hopefully make their job a little bit easier to make that 1%, a higher percentage. Mm-hmm. The defenders now need to be concerned about, okay, great. If I connect this to all my security tools, where's that data going? Who has access to that data? Are the attackers now able to leverage that same data that I'm putting into these models to then reverse engineer it and then attack me because now they know all the fundamental weaknesses in my tech stack? What does that look like? And so the defenders have to like really think about this in a more long-term impact versus the attacker just like, give me a quick script that can compromise X system and hit enter and they're done. They have a script to do it. And so like, it's a little bit different.
When you watch news, and as a cybersecurity expert, when you look at news about TikTok stealing data or Huawei being not able to have a business in the US for security reasons at all, what do you make of it, and how can that be prevented, or is there a way around it?
I think there's a lot of geopolitical reasons that a lot of these different things happen, and I won't comment on those specifically. But for large 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 amounts of government entities to be very weary of technology, I would also caution using it. Is kind of what I would say.
Okay.
And there's so when you talk about, like, let's separate the two things, like what TikTok is alleged doing. And I say alleged because I haven't seen the data and I haven't dug into it. It's very difficult to get the details. Allegedly doing data mining on U.S. citizens or call it NATO citizens. What Huawei is doing is providing implants to be exploited by, and this has been factually proven to some extent, implants or exploits that are sitting on their devices that are running in organizations that are then getting compromised by specific nation state actors that know that they're there because they may have helped develop them. And so I think there are two separate things. One is like blatant, let's call it exploitability. And the other is a long-term game that's a little bit deeper, that has a little bit of like a danger of like what's happening with our data. And it's something that we absolutely need to be aware of and need to care about. Yeah, so that's kind of how I would look at it. I know that's not like a great answer. There's a ton of behind the scenes, I'm sure, things that are going on too that are more classified that I don't have the privy of today.
Okay. What about the generative AI and how effectively, how fast is it going to help small companies, small organizations?
I think you're already seeing it help. I think it's allowing marketing and go-to-market folks build blogs and demos and presentations and then immediately send it to their sales targets and then immediately schedule demos, all automated. And so what you allow is you free up those really good sales and marketing professionals to kind of do the things that they're really good at and make very targeted, very sophisticated type campaigns that they can then leverage to go after the big fish or the big customers that you're trying to focus on. I think in the security realm, you've seen things like Microsoft Copilot, which is tying in all of the Microsoft security stack tools to basically build an autonomous security system that can both self-learn and self-detect and self-respond in some capacity. And what this is going to allow is security teams, like I mentioned earlier, a few people to do the same thing you could have done with a team of like 70 or 80. And I think that's good. Mm-hmm. I think the goal should always be focus on automation and focus on being lean versus having people that are very bored in their jobs because their job is very remedial and they do one or two tasks and that's it for their 40 hours a week. And I think it's really going to allow us to build the next generation of really, really good cybersecurity professionals because they don't need to worry about the noise. The noise is not taken care of by autonomous systems. The stuff that they want to focus on is the advanced threat research that you can't get from a system.
What would you say to small to medium-sized companies, how they can start leveraging AI to implement better cybersecurity or establish a culture of cybersecurity?
So the one thing I would say is the way AI thinks today, and just like thinking about GPT, there's so many questions and so many concerns, I think, from the security community today that I would almost advise not just connecting all of your security systems to it because we don't know what's happening on the back end. No one has gotten visibility into where your data is going, who's accessing that information. Like in theory, it should just be your organization, but is the data you're sending there anonymized? Is the access being monitored? Do you have the ability to monitor who's being accessing it? Do you have the other caveat you mentioned about like people in your organization? Right now, anybody can use ChatGPT. I can create an account with my personal Gmail and then upload or leverage it to connect to BigID confidential documents or whatever. And this is an example. And now the AI has access to documents that I've provided. And so there's an education aspect that that security practitioners and professionals, I do believe, need to put a policy together to state how you can leverage AI in your organization. And I think we need to do this sooner than later because if we wait too long and too many people are already leveraging the technology, it's going to be very difficult to get back out of it.
How do you see the compliance aspect or the regulatory aspect? Is it going to always play catch up with this fast-paced development of AI and data privacy concerns?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, just the way, the way regulation works, at least in the US, absolutely. You're probably looking at the very least, something that goes to Congress to get developed and voted on probably a year from now. It's just the way it works. And then even then, by the time something's passed, it's already out of date, right? Like it's just kind of the game of whack-a-mole, right? And technology moves so fast. This is the AI movement is moving faster than any technology I've ever seen. I mean, if you look at iPhone first generation to second generation, we're talking like a year. We're talking GPT-3 and 4 in the matter of like weeks, months. So I think that window is shrinking and it's very difficult. And writing policy is very complicated, and it's, 500, 600, 700 pages, and people have to vote on it. And then the implications have to be understood by the layman and the security practitioners that probably had no input on writing it. So yeah, it's a very like game of catch up.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Anyways, are you going to the RSA conference next week? Looking forward to it.
Yeah. I'll be at RSA. It's always fun to one get so BigID is a fully remote company, and so it's great to get to meet and hang out for a week with some of my peers and CEO and our chief product officer and the different executive that we bring in. So it's great to get to see people in person that I work with every day on Zoom for multiple hours plus a week. And then on the flip side of that is I get to meet and work with peers and other people in the industry that I've known for years, and people that have been mentored to me that I get to meet them in person again. Like I haven't seen some of these people in once a year kind of. So it's like a fun meetup, and then it's also fun because I get to help our sales and go to market teams talk to customers that are there and build new relationships with new CISOs and new security leaders that I didn't know before. So yeah, it's a great time. It's always fun. It's always training, but I think at the end of it, companies come back very energized based off of what they've seen and heard of the new technology advancements of RSA.
Any particular speaker that you're looking forward to meet or hear?
So there is one event that I'll be going to, and Chris Krebs will be presenting.
Okay. Cool. Our CEO for Ganadis will also be there. That's about it. Thank you so much for joining. It was very informative, especially the AI part and how fast it's changing. Because every day the news feed, the social media feed is just kind of updates you whether you like it or not. It's just like, hey, this is happening. So yeah,
it's fascinating. And for better or worse, it's here to stay. So let's work with it. Let's use it as best as we can, and let's work through some of the pain points now before it becomes too big that we can't reel it back in.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tylor, for your time. I wish you a good day ahead.
Yep. Thanks.
Thank you. Right. Bye.